when it comes to the next rule, then this is just a hilarious quote. If you're excited, it's a bad idea. So rule number 4 is speaking directly about emotions here, and saying that when you become super excited about a certain investment, like some people with Tesla, or me with Bitcoin, or certain things like that, you tend to have your emotions start to take over your logical and sometimes your systems, right? And it's one of those things where it's very easy for you to become tied to something and get really excited when you hear the story behind the company, or you hear the idea that Bitcoin is going to become the standard across the world. Like, those narratives are really strong and they can persuade you. But one of those things to understand is that that's when you should be very careful. That's when you should start thinking like, okay, I need to poke holes at my thesis and find every reason why I might be wrong. Because in that time where you're just really high on that emotion, that is not the time that you want to buy. You want to be careful, reevaluate, think really hard, and understand that, am I excited because other people are telling me and I'm hearing this story and it sounds great? Or am I excited because I've heard the story, I've evaluated for myself, and I know it to be true from my own logical and own reasoning? So I think for rule number 4, pretty straightforward there. When it comes to rule number 5, this is just funny.
You are not special in a lot of ways. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you're a little special. But in the world of investing, you're not special. And so a lot of people think, okay, like everyone else, they follow these, like they're prone to these behavioral investing rules. Like, they invest when the markets are high, and they sell when the markets are low, and they make all these mistakes. But I don't make these mistakes. These mistakes, like I'm perfect,
Yeah.
like I got it. Just realize that we are all prone to the exact same fallacies and the exact same emotional dysregulation that disrupts our ability to make decisions in the market. And so what you need to do is limit those, but you have to be upfront and honest by admitting that you do have those faults, because we all have them. And the best way to do that is use a rule-based approach to investing. And so there's kind of two things that come to mind when we're thinking about the common faults with people when people are investing. The first is fundamental attribution error. So all this simply means is that when you're investing, we have a tendency, really just in life, we have a tendency to attribute all of the good things to ourselves, right? And we have a tendency to attribute all of the bad things to everyone else or the market or our environment, right? So we have a very incorrect view of what we've done correct or incorrect in the past, because we attribute things that are good to ourselves and things that are bad to others, or anything but ourselves, right? The second thing is that overconfidence bias, okay? And this is something where we overestimate our strengths and we underestimate our weaknesses. And this is really dangerous, specifically the weaknesses, because our risk comes from us underestimating our weaknesses, and that's where you lose a lot of money. And if you know Warren Buffett, he has 2 rules. The first is to never lose money, and the second is to always follow rule number 1, or something like that.
It's like, never forget rule number 1.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the rule that he has, the cardinal sin is losing money, right? And so if you're underestimating your weaknesses, that is the easiest way to lose money, because you're risking a lot of your assets by not realizing your weaknesses in investing.
And it's so easy for people to think that way. Like the example about us always attributing good things to ourselves and putting the bad things to other people. It's like a group project. Like someone's like, oh hey, like I, when the project goes good, oh, I did this in the project, I did this part of the project. You want to like make sure that everyone knows what you did, right? But when it goes bad, it's like we messed up. Like or sometimes people throw the day and they're like, I'm not responsible for any of this. So really just understanding that, but then too knowing that there's so many smart people that go into finance because it's very lucrative and you can make a lot of money. I'm talking about people with their PhDs in financial engineering or maybe economics and all these different degrees, but they still struggle to beat the market. So if those people that are highly educated in the world of finance still cannot, I guess, outperform certain metrics, then you should not think that, because you watch a couple YouTube videos or you read a couple books, you'll be able to do the same. So,
or even if you made good returns on an investment that wasn't, like crypto, if you invested in a crypto coin, some altcoin that really isn't that safe, and you made $1,000 or $2,000, that doesn't mean you're a good investor. That means you're a speculator and you got lucky. if you make a shot from half court, that doesn't mean the shot was a good shot. It just means you made the shot and you got lucky. So
That is so true. That is so true. So don't get caught up in your own success,
yeah,
and always humble yourself.
I feel like I beat that point enough just a second ago. Mel, what is the sixth rule of
And so
investing?
when it comes to investing, a lot of people like to compare how their returns did to a general index. So like there's this thing called the S&P 500, which is just like a stock that holds all the top 500 stocks, but it's really more like the top stocks just in the they're just the top stocks out there, right? I don't know if they're US based or it's like international, but the top stocks doing really well. And so people will be like, oh, well, the S&P did 13%. I need to beat it by 15, right? And a lot of people that are in the actual, that work at Wall Street, this is how they think. But Dr. Crosby says this type of thinking is actually really, really bad because, especially for the retail investor, because why are you trying to be like, what do you gain from beating that, right? So he says rule number 6 is your life is the best benchmark, meaning that you should go with a goal-based approach to investing instead of saying I need to beat this index or whatever. Because when you're following a goal-based approach, a goal-based investing approach, it helps you stick to your plan. Because when times are rough, you don't think, oh, well, when times are rough, the S&P or whatever index you're following may be doing bad. And so you think, okay, well, how can I do better than this? Or you start to freak out and say like, oh, this is what's happening. But when you're thinking about your goals, you go, well, I know I want to reach this amount by this age, blah, blah, blah. Then you take a step back and you understand that, okay, well, what's actually happening in the market? Like, where are the opportunities? So really the beauty of following, of using your life, of focusing on your own goals is that you have a clarity of mind when things go bad and you think long term. Again, stressing that investing should be long term. You are not going to get rich from investing. You don't create wealth from investing, you build wealth, meaning that you grow what you already have. So
Exactly.
Don't pay attention to short-term results. They are, after all, short terms. And just one thing I wanted to add too is that investing is a road towards financial freedom, and it's not about it's not about anything else really. You should be worried about you reaching that freedom, whatever you define it to be. And that's my 2 cents.
I couldn't have said it better, so I'm not going to say anything.
Rule number 7.
Rule 7 is forecasting is for weathermen. What he goes into here is that a lot of people have started using models and these fancy indicators, and a lot of these, big data has pushed a lot of different ways to analyze the stock market and such. But he goes into the idea that these models don't actually give you much. The information that you get from fancy schmancy, data and information and all these weird stuff, they don't actually give you a whole lot. Remember that when you're investing in a company, what you're doing is you're just giving, you just own a small portion of a company, right? So you're just owning a small portion of Google or Apple or Walmart or whatever it is, right? So it doesn't matter what the models say. What matters is the fundamental company that lies behind your investment, right? And then he kind of moves into this other area of financial advisors. And so a lot of financial advisors, they will use models and all these other things to push their ideas of what they think is the best model as well, or the best investment.
I actually want to say,
go ahead.
Not to contradict, people get confused. Not financial advisors, but financial analysts. Those that you read articles like, oh, this analyst from JP Morgan, this analyst from this place it's analysts because they're having to. You can explain the incentive models that they have, but it works against you when you're reading these because they're obviously getting incentivized to write about a certain stock by a certain company sometimes.
Yeah, no, good clarification. The financial experts, a lot of the times these are people who are highly educated, have been in the school system, they have a PhD for whatever their specific area is, and they've been pretty much correct their entire life, and they come into the real world and they're wrong, and they don't think they're wrong because they're overconfident in their opinions, and they use these models to back their ideas up, but often these models aren't based, that they're more of a correlation rather than a causation. And so what Mel was talking about with financial advisors, though, is that...
Analyst.
I think it's advisors, actually.
It's analyst.
Well, because the advisors have, they make commissions on, your... Like how would analysts make money off you? They get money off, you reading it.
So what he was saying is that financial analysts, they have these reports, and whenever they're writing these reports, sometimes they can't get access to certain information about a company unless that they agree with the company to be
He
like,
did say that, yeah.
hey, you should write a good thing for people to buy my stock because buying the stock would be good. So analysts, what you're doing when you're reading other people's interpretations of like the forecasting, because analysts, what they do is they predict where a stock is going based on like all this information they gather. But again, if they're the only way they can talk to a certain company is by agreeing to write good reviews, that can skew your perception, and if you base it off of that, it's going to be very hard. Now advisors, yes, there is trouble with advisors because you need to make sure that you're talking to a certain type of advisor, because there's advisors that make money off of certain things. I can't remember specifically what he said, but there's a question, when if you go to rule number 2 in the book, if you look it up, he has some questions that you should ask, and the first question is, are you an advisor that what he says that practically works for me? Meaning, are you putting my interests ahead of everybody else? I just have to fight you on that because it's
No,
gonna
you're
get
right.
really
You're right.
confusing on people
That was a
when
good
they hear like
clarification.
advisors and
Yeah.
all that. But yeah, so
And the point of all that was just to say that don't rely on models, don't rely on experts, don't rely on anyone except for yourself. Do your own research, understand what's happening in the background, understand the company you're investing in, why you're investing in them, and understand the foundation, what we call fundamental investing. Okay, you can look up Warren Buffett. He's the one who really pushes this idea. But fundamental investing in the sense that you want to understand the fundamentals of the company, not all the data that surrounds them and the models and the weird predictions that you get from just inputting a bunch of data into
and the
math.
reason why that, because it can seem counterintuitive, like if these people get paid, like Armel, Ben, didn't you just say that you should talk to people that do this for a full-time job? Like, isn't that what financial analysts do? And one, we explained that their incentives could be against yours, and then but number 2 is the reason why you want to invest, you want to research yourself. It's going to help with your behavior. If you yourself understand fundamentally why you are investing in that company and not just like, oh, I heard this person say it's going to do well, you are less likely to make an irrational buy and a rational sell because you have your own thesis. You have reasoned through the investment purchase. So the reason why just reading an article and then going to buy that stock is not a good idea. It's not because you can do better research than those analysts. It's so that for your peace of mind that you understand why you are investing, and that's really like the biggest thing, because again, you can't predict the future, but you can come up with your own thesis for you to believe that it's going to do well. Blah 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 blah.